Okay, so stream looks like it's going. A little bit delayed, I think. Okay. So yeah, like I was saying, I'm gonna try to work on the limb some more, especially this hind limb, and we'll see how far we get. I wanna, hopefully this will be like the last stream that is like lock-in, and we can start working in on some details. Sorry, I'm gonna take a sip of water. Yeah, so we can start working on some details later. There are some other things that I might want to try to adjust now that I'm looking at it with kind of fresh eyes. I haven't looked at this since last week. So there might be some proportion adjustments that I want to make, or at least double check. And we'll see how it goes. Okay. Onyx. Hi Onyx, how are you doing? Thanks. Thanks a lot. I hope your week has been good. My week was really fun, but a little bit hectic, I think. I had some family come in from out of town, which is really cool. I got to see my sister. And my sister really loves Halloween stuff. And the area in Oregon that I live in is really good for like lots of Halloween activities and attractions and stuff like that. So my week has been full of some cool Halloween and we went to a couple like festivals, some pumpkin patches, stuff like that. Pretty fun. So I have my references over on the left on my other screen. So I'll show you what I'm looking at. It's just this diagram of the hind limb, all this anatomy. So I'm going to be working on all this stuff today, and we'll see how I approach it. I can maybe keep this up on the stream. And then we'll just set it to, okay, it's already on always on top. We'll see if it gets in my way or not. I haven't done much, but started to get into, oh, nice. You started to get into modeling. Cool. What are you using to model, like software wise? And what are you interested in modeling? Mitch Jansen, sorry. Hi, Mitch. How's it going? Ooh, Suchomimus. That's a fun one. I really like Sucho. I think Sucho might be my favorite Spinosaurid. Not like there's like a ton of them, but there's actually more Spinosaurid like species than like when you look into it than I thought there was. But of course they're all like pretty fragmentary, so they're kind of hard to work with, but Sucho is really cool. I've watched a lot of tutorials. Sweet. Yeah, that sounds great. I'm really glad that you're getting into it. And it sounds like a really cool first, project to work on. Yeah, I remember when I first started learning ZBrush, it was kind of rough, honestly, because I was doing it in kind of a rush. I shouldn't have done that to myself, but I was preparing some work for a it was like my grad show. It was my final show for my senior year in college. And like close to the end of the term, I decided I wanted to 3D print a sculpt. And I had never sculpted digitally, and I had never 3D printed a thing before. So that was a crazy few weeks there at the end of already stressful semester. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I learned how to use ZBrush, which is great. And I use ZBrush like pretty much every day. So at least I got that out of it, right? So I think I'm just going to isolate this leg so I can see everything. We'll just work on this for a while. So what I'm trying to do is just establish these like bigger primary forms inside, like on the biggest muscles that show up on the outer surface of the leg. It's a slightly different approach, right, to what I did with the front, the arm, because I'm working from I'm pulling the muscles out of like a larger mesh, instead of placing the muscles individually. I guess it's kind of like I didn't really consciously think about which way I was going to approach this. It was kind of like I've been saying, maybe in the first couple of streams, like I kind of just do things the way I feel like. I'm not super worried about like being consistent about like, oh, I did this leg that way, so I got to do this one the same way. I just kind of just felt like it would work for me right now, so that's what I'm doing, sort of thing. I don't think, in terms of like approaches, if we're talking about like ways to model like muscles and stuff, I don't really think there's like a right or wrong way to do it. There's just advantages and disadvantages maybe to certain approaches. You can definitely get to the same end using any approach. It's just like you got to weigh those options. Like for example, this way, if I were to do each muscle individually, there's lots of interesting interactions that happen between the muscles when they overlap each other and like insert into each other. And then when you merge all this stuff down, you get a lot of that nice form interaction, if you want to call it that, for free, kind of. Even though it's not really for free. I mean, I hand placed all of those, so but it's kind of you get those kind of details, I suppose, built in. Whereas if I'm approaching it this way, I have to make sure all of those overlaps and stuff are kind of, I'm building those into a larger form, right? So it's a little bit, from my perspective, I feel like this approach, the way I'm doing it right now, where I'm building out the muscle forms from a larger mesh, it kind of feels like I'm fighting with the mesh sometimes. Fighting to like reveal the forms that I need. So for that reason, sometimes I don't like doing it this way, because you're seeing that I'm having to like define, smooth, redefine, and it's a little bit of a back and forth, which sometimes I'm not really in the mood to deal with, you know. But today I feel like it's okay. It's not like sometimes it just feels like it clicks, and sometimes it feels like it's kind of awkward. So I just kind of have to read like what I'm feeling like, I suppose. Here we go with the auto save. Dasher, hey, how's it going? Oh, you got the whole next week off. That's really cool. You got any big plans for what you're going to do with your time off? Rest, yeah, rest is really good. Always, whenever I have time off, I always tell myself I'm going to rest, and I usually don't. I'm usually not super successful at that. I need to get better at actually taking time to rest. So let's see. There's some interesting references here. I'm trying to gauge like how much mass I want to add to the back limb. These guys are kind of like, they're all pretty chunky, I feel like. So I'll probably go something similar. Could also depend on the pose, right? Because these guys, their leg is all what's the word? It's folded up because they're excuse me. They're laying down. So I got to take that into consideration as well. Maybe if I could find a pose that's a little bit neutral, like maybe a croc or something that's swimming or like resting in the water with its leg extended might be a better reference. This one might be good for now. Nikki, hello. I might need to pull out another instance of this, so I can have two of my reference images up at the same time. Because I do need the anatomy. Pale King, love how it looks. Thank you. So I'm kind of curious, for those of you who are in the stream, how many of you are any of you artists? I know Onyx was saying that they're learning how to model, but are many of you artists, or most of you just interested in the game? Like, what are you what are you up to, I suppose? Pale King, no artist, just interested. Cool. Eva, interested in dino games. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Sweet. Yeah, I was kind of wondering about that. So what I'm trying to do is, there's a lot of these muscles inside of the leg. One thing it's kind of a hard area to work on because there's not so much information about it, at least not like readily accessible, is the interiors of the legs of these animals, like reptiles and dinosaurs especially, and birds. The reference material is a little bit hidden, but I'm working on these muscles inside here, trying to get those established. And they're a little bit tricky because they kind of overlap each other, and there's big sections of muscle that like this area here. Let me see. Let me get my pen out. I should just launch this at the beginning of stream. I always forget. Maybe I need to bring up the task manager and there we go. I need to kill it and then bring it back. Sorry if that freaked out the stream a little bit. I think the stream's back there. Okay. So there's a section of muscle that comes down like from the outside and then pops in here. And then there's another one that wraps around the leg this way. So there's this weird like interlocking. There's the calf muscle is coming in here like this, and it splits, I believe. At least that's what it looks like on the diagrams. And then this is like the Achilles tendon right here. So this shape is kind of what I'm trying to get in there, but it might not be super easy for me to do that with this approach, so I might actually have to insert a mesh, but we'll see how we go. We might have to do like a hybrid approach. Mr. Yeet, the playlist, it's just Islander had our composer create like a looped version of the one of the tracks for the game, which is really nice and like ambient. So that's what I'm playing right now. So this is actually from the game soundtrack so far. Getting this calf muscle in. Yeah, sounds like a lot of you are pretty interested in dinosaur games in general, or maybe dinosaur survival games. Yeah, same here. I think I was talking about this with Islander when we first met. But one of the games that really got me interested in like dinosaur themed survival games was a game called The Stomping Lands, if any of you guys remember that. Honestly, I don't really know what ended up happening, like the ins and outs of what ended up happening with that game. But that's really where I first saw like the potential of this type of game. So it's exciting to be able to work on one. My pen is behaving a little bit oddly. I wonder why. Oh, no worries. You thought I was Islander? No, sorry. No. Islander should be here, I believe. I think he's in chat. But yeah, I'm not the. I'm a modeler. I am not one of the lead devs. So we'll see how this is looking with the rest of the leg. I mean, the rest of the body. Not too bad. It's feeling like maybe I'm like the muscle forms are coming in pretty well, but I'm wondering if they're so big that they're making the leg feel like kind of stubby, which is a concern. I don't want the leg to feel stubby. I want it to feel powerful for sure, like pretty like heavily muscled, but not like super short. So I'm gonna shave down some of these forms just a little bit. Did I ever check out the bottom jaw length? Yeah, I did that last stream, I think. If you give me 1 second, I can import one of my refs. But yeah, I think ultimately it's kind of the way the skull is. This guy's got a pretty big underbite or overbite, I don't know, depending on how you look at it. But yeah, the teeth are gonna overhang. The top teeth are gonna overhang quite a bit. It's like if you swing this, let me get this stuff all situated. You swing it up, like this lower part here in the front needs to fit inside. I do think that there's we could potentially grow the jaw, like lengthen the jaw just a little bit, so that way it's not so drastic. But if you look at if we're going strictly based off the reference material, the jaw is probably gonna, how do I line this up? If we line up the edge there with the jaw, it's pretty much the same length. We might be able to get a little bit more at the tip here. But yeah, it's mostly the same length. I do see what you mean though. Like, one of the things that may be contributing to it is that there's a lot of mass back here. Like, it's kind of like a strange balance, right? Because the head it's got heaviness on this side because of the nose and the teeth, and then the jaw is kind of opposite. It's got heaviness in the back here because of all the muscle attachments. So I think what we can probably do is, once I start getting more into like the details of stuff, like the secondary pass, we could probably extend the jaw just a little bit, something like that. But yeah, it'll need to close properly. Let me turn that off. I gotta turn off this, get that out of there. Excuse me. I'm getting a little distracted by the tail and stuff. I think this rib cage is a little bit too, what's the word? It's making, like if you look at it in cross section, it's making this sort of shape, like a, I don't know. It's just got a lot of heaviness at the top here, and I want to make sure that it feels a little bit more like I'd rather it go the opposite direction rather than kind of inversed as it is right now. So I'll probably have to double check that too. Make sure I'm putting the right masses in the right areas. Trim this down. I'm going to go back to the leg. This area can get pulled out a little bit. Make sure I'm attaching it to the pelvis properly. All right, let's start addressing, I'm going to start addressing these toes. So I think subconsciously I'm avoiding it because I know they're going to be a little bit complicated. Give me 1 second. My dog is trying to get out. Okay, he's good. I have three little dogs. They're all rescues. They're all Chihuahuas. Two of them are Chihuahua Dachshund mixes, and one of them is a Chihuahua Russell Terrier. And they're all named after video game characters. My little dog, the little Jack Russell Chihuahua mix. I named him Odo Garen because he's got like he's kind of feisty, to be honest, and he's got like the reddish coloration, like tint to his a reddish tint to his fur. So I thought it was appropriate. I just call him Odo for short. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to, do I still have groups? I might, might just make one toe, like detail one toe, kind of just make sure that the forms are there mostly, and then I'll duplicate that and copy it maybe, yeah, a couple times. That way I don't have to do every single one entirely by hand. At least I'll get like a little bit of a start on some of those. Gotta auto save. Sorry and hello. Welcome, welcome. Then again, honestly, I don't know if that's going to help me any. It might just be easier to sculpt them all. I got to get this webbing in there as well. I gotta, let's see. I'm going to get this. I'm going to try and get like a similar gesture to this ref here, because it's got a nice, the toes are nicely spread out. So I won't have, later on when we're detailing and stuff like that, I'm gonna want something similar pose to that, so that way I'm not having trouble getting into the details of the mesh. And I need to adjust the lengths of these too, because it seems like my toes are too short. And then this one is the longest one. So I'm going to pull this one out. It's kind of hollow here in this area, a little bit. Kind of carve that away. Okay. You should move this. Just do a quick check. Seems all right. I think the proportions of the legs in relation to the body are going to be probably one of the biggest, the things I change more than probably any other thing. I need to isolate this. Make a new group because it's getting bent weird. Okay. And then I think I'm gonna insert a mesh and I'll do the webbing with that. Just so I don't have to awkwardly pull out more material from in between the toes. It looks like the webbing goes up pretty far too. So we got that. Maybe not quite so far up that toe. Then duplicate that. This covers the majority, at least in this ref, it covers the majority of that. I guess you would call it like the pinky toe. Put something like that. And then move this over here. isolate the foot. And this looks pretty minimal here, at least. And then I'm going to merge it together. This toe needs to get longer just a little bit. Working on, okay, so I need to make sure that this is on back face masking, because working on these very thin meshes, like fins, wings, this sort of kind of webbing stuff usually is a kind of a pain. Any mesh that gets very thin, even like cloth, stuff like that, it can be kind of a pain to work on because the brushes will pull material from the opposite side and like fold it in on itself. And it's not good. Sometimes I'll forget to turn on that little back face masking button, which prevents that from happening. And I won't notice it till several minutes later. And then I got a big mess to fix. So that back face masking, but honestly, I'm not really sure why it's not on by default. I've kind of always wondered that. If I ever get a chance to meet any of the devs that work on ZBrush, that's probably one of my main questions I would ask them. I've never encountered a time in my years of working in ZBrush where it benefited me to not have backface masking on. I'm just trying to get that feeling of, I guess you can call them like the knuckles, or like the tendons. I want to get that feeling of tendon underneath skin, which can be kind of hard to do. Oh, excuse me. Ultimately, like, these guys have such thick skin, and their scales are pretty big there, that some of this is probably gonna go away. But I'd rather build on top of something with some structure than just like an amorphous sort of blob of a foot. can't wait till you guys release your game to the public. Yeah, that's gonna be really fun. I'm really excited to see some of these models like walking around in the environments and stuff. This guy's gonna look pretty cool, I think. Something like that. And then I usually don't go for these sort of details this early, but I do think it's a big enough form change here to define these like big creases in the foot. And maybe I might need to consider reposing the foot so that way it's a little bit in more of a relaxed state, because I think the animators might appreciate just a little bit more of a neutral pose, so that way they don't have trouble with this crease here when they're extending the foot during like a walk cycle or something. But I think, I mean, the majority of those forms on the foot and the leg are there. Let me do a quick Google search, because I'm gonna move the chat over here. I want to see if I can find a reference of a crocodile leg that's not so something a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more extended. Try not to want to get all my reference kind of gathered before the stream, but sometimes I need a little bit extra help. Try and get this quick. There's a couple of good ones. I'll show you once I pull them into the ref sheet. Ooh, that one's kind of low res, but I can at least see what's going on a little bit. So I got these two here. I think this one is pretty helpful. This one too, I wish it was higher resolution, but at least I can see the gesture of things. And then I'm gonna put this down here. Which is what's interesting, especially if looking at this back view of it, is it's a little bit strange how this area here feels kind of compressed, like kind of flat, and I'm wondering if it's just because it's laying on the ground, or if I should give this a little bit more of a, maybe it's like an adaptation for like streamlining in the water and like paddling. Not quite sure. I do need to incorporate those like spikes here. what I'll do is I'll just represent it by sort of a ridge line. It'll be here someplace. Somewhere there. And I think I'm going to grab the foot. Just rotate it just a little bit. Just to relax it a bit. Okay. Something like that. I think that's looking pretty good so far. Like I said, some of the proportions might change. But I think for the most part, that's feeling... I mean, the forms of the legs, the leg is there. Okay, so I've only been on for about an hour. It's a little over an hour, and I've been able to get the leg done, which is much faster than I anticipated, honestly. Not done, but you know, fairly decently blocked in. I'm kind of noodling on it right now because I'm trying to decide what I'm going to move on to. Let me put this claw on here. I should probably like merge the muscles of the front like of the arm and get that to a similar stage as this, so that way it all feels, they're not all like separate meshes still. So I'll stop noodling on that for now, just to see what it looks like. I'm going to duplicate it and then mirror it. Okay. just taking, whenever I zoom out like this, I'm just trying to consider the whole model and how it's all working together. And kind of, it's usually like a self-critiquing moment. Where I'm just analyzing everything and seeing what I need to do better, or any problem areas that I'm seeing. But yeah, I think that's the plan of attack. I'm going to work on the arm. Which version? I'll work on this arm. Merge all of that stuff down. And we're gonna dynamesh it together. I'm gonna give it just a bit of an inflate. The reason why I'm inflating is so that way I can kind of interlock all of these meshes together just a little bit so that they kind of overlap. And then when I dynamesh it, I'm not going to have, I'll probably have some voids, but I'm not going to have as many. Where the heck is the dynamesh? There it is. See what resolution works. That should be fine. So now when I smooth stuff, majority of these meshes should be like interlocked and they won't have as many gaps. Need to pull up some of my, this is a good one. Flip it. Like some of this stuff, the shapes of the skin and like the scales on top of it kind of override some of these muscle forms. So a lot of this might be going away, especially down here in the lower arm near the hand. I'll dynamesh it again because that's starting to fold in on itself. And the hand itself doesn't look like it has any webbing on it. So I'm just going to go with that approach for the Puru. Rounding out the fingers. Let me actually solo this because it's the body's getting in my way. Rounding out the fingers. Getting these muscles that would be in between the fingers kind of represented, although I didn't actually go in and insert any muscle shapes for them. These scales on the arm are going to be really fun to sculpt on there, because I really like the flow that they have. The sort of like spiraling feel that they have. I always have a lot of fun sculpting like big scales. Big overlapping scales, stuff that's very like, I guess, like dragony is always fun to sculpt, and Crocs have a lot of that kind of thing going on, so that's going to be nice. I'm just thinking ahead as well. Probably after I get the limbs done, I think I'm going to jump back onto the head and actually merge down all of the like muscle and skull shapes, and then start really going. So there's a couple different phases that I kind of like to break things up in. There's like the initial block-in phase where everything looks very like geometric and simple. And then there's kind of like a secondary block-in phase where I'm just being a little bit more specific about the forms and like laying everything in, which is that's the phase that we're in right now. And then after that is kind of like the first pass at like detail stuff. So just more refinement on everything. That's where I start to get into like the first wrinkles, major wrinkles, like major scale shapes maybe. Things like that. And I think we might be doing that on the head soon. Sorry. I think I'm actually wearing away the tip of my pen. I need to switch out one of the nibs. Because sometimes when I'm putting down a stroke, it doesn't register. I'm kind of, I don't know if y'all work with tablets or anything, but I'm kind of noticing that, so I got a new pen tablet not too long ago, from Wacom or Wacom, however you want to, Wacom, and I honestly don't know if I like the new pen, at least not the nibs, because I feel like I wear through them really quickly. And like I think the older models of Intuos stuff didn't really like, I still have some of the nibs that I used for those, and they're not as worn down, and I've had some of my Wacom products for like almost 10 years, over 10 years now. So it's interesting. I wonder if they changed their like the way they manufacture stuff, or just what's going on over there, because that is a little bit concerning, especially considering how much their products cost. Or maybe I'm just pushing really hard on my pen. I don't think so though. Give me 1 second. I might actually swap this out because it is becoming kind of a distraction. Okay, there we go. See if that helps any. I might change my, I'm getting a little bored of this mat cap. I'm gonna change that really quick. It's good to change mat caps anyway sometimes, because other mat caps can help you catch little like surface imperfections, or like weird, the forms just kind of look different depending on what mat cap is used. So sometimes it can help me catch little weird things that I don't like about the forms. Kind of gives a little bit of a fresh look on things. Snafu. I'm not going to try to pronounce what you said, but I think I understand, and thank you. Is that maybe, what is that? Maybe Portuguese? Am I getting that right? It looks similar to Spanish. I do speak Spanish. I understand Spanish much better than I speak it though. It's kind of weird. I wish I spoke better Spanish. Because I grew up hearing it from my family my whole life, so I can understand it really well. It's just hard for me to string together sentences with Spanish. But because of that, I can kind of understand there's so many other languages that are related to Spanish, or like Latin, Italian, some other languages as well. I can kind of piece together what the meanings are. No worries. Okay, so that's getting to a similar spot where the leg is. That's good. Oh, nope, I don't want that. Yeah, this is a pretty interesting phase of the sculpt, I think. At least for me, because it's where a lot of the forms that are going to be established here are not really going to change later. Like as long as they're correct, right? Like I want the forms to be in the right place, right proportion, to look good with the rest of the model. But as long as that's there, these forms aren't really gonna shift around too much after this is like solidified, right? But what's fun about it is just kind of, I really like getting in there and kind of like finessing it. So like being very specific about the way things turn and how they hit the light and stuff like that. If something's too concave, too convex, being pretty specific about the way the shape actually feels. It's one of the reasons why I use this brush too, because I can kind of feel how it's turning and see how it's turning with all these little marks that are being made on the mesh. And if you're watching, like every time I make a stroke, I'm following the form that I want to create. So when I'm not just like scribbling on the surface. If the form is doing something, I'm following that form. So this shape is going like this in space. So I'll make strokes like that to like reinforce the way it's going. And this shape, so you can do it two ways. You can go like this across like this, or you can come down with like the fibers of the muscle. And the same thing here, I can come across like this, and I can come down like this. So I'm stringing together those strokes to build up the form the way I want it. At least that's the way I like to think about it. I'm not really worried about smoothing stuff either, because once like I have been smoothing stuff out, but Usually it's after I'm kind of satisfied with the way the forms are looking. Because I think it's more helpful to see this sort of rough texture. Because if everything's rough, it's still kind of uniform anyway. But it really helps me see how things are turning. And then this sort of matte cap helps too. I have a few nice ones in here that help. This one, if this one really shows imperfections in the surfaces, which is kind of nice depending on, like, especially for refining stages. You can really see every little dent and like scratch and stuff in the surface. So I usually use this for like refining things, refining the form, but it's good to use here in this stage as well. I have a few others like that too, like, where is it? This one's good too. I like this one. I didn't carve. I'll show you what I did before. So this is, depends on what part of the stream you came in. So this actually started as separate meshes. So if I go to this arm here, you can see that they're all separate meshes representing each muscle, and then I merged it down, and that's what I'm refining right here. So it's not necessarily like a carving process. It's kind of more like adding shapes to get the overall shape. The leg was built a little bit differently. I didn't block out everything for the leg. I kind of built that out from a single piece of clay, if you want to think of it that way. Okay. So yeah, just considering it again. I think the arm is pretty much at the same stage as the leg is now. I mean, I'm missing like some details on the hand, like some claws and stuff. These guys don't get any claws though, the two outside fingers. Playing this species will be special after having seen its creation. I hope so, yeah. I think being able to see the whole process from beginning to end, like to actually being implemented into the game, is going to be a really unique chance, because I don't know. I don't think your many games like kind of let you see that whole pipeline. One, because it's kind of it's long, you know. It takes a good while for a character like this to be, you know, from concept to sculpts to textures to all of that stuff, getting it into the game. But I do think it's going to be a worthwhile, you know, documentation of the process. I'm gonna smooth out just a little bit to see how everything's coming together. Oh, I don't want to do that. Okay. Cool. I do want to make sure, so I don't want these fingers to like, oh, what's the word? I always call them like sausage fingers is what I kind of tend to refer to them as. Like they're just like tubes basically with like they're kind of formless. I don't really want, that's what I don't want to happen, right? I want them to feel like there's bone, tendon, muscle. So that's why I'm kind of carving back in here and giving it some structure, because I feel like it was going a bit too rounded. Like I don't want it to feel like mechanical, which is a risk that can happen as well. That's not a good thing, but it needs to feel organic with structure. That is my goal, at least. One fun brush that I like to use too is a soft concrete brush. It's another one. It's another kind of scary brush because it tears up the surface. You see how that it's adding that texture there. But the cool thing about it is when that surface is smoothed out, it leaves a nice subtle form. And it's really nice. I don't know what that mark is there. It's a mask. It leaves a nice little subtle form that can be nice as like tendons, especially for like hands and feet. It's sometimes nice for like veins, if you're trying to get like subtle veins in like a surface. What else? Bigger like subtle muscle changes are good too. Like if I wanted to reinforce a muscle, like one of the smaller muscles in the arm, like right here. You can see that shape that it's leaving. This, it's very subtle, like convex form. That's really cool. I'm gonna do just a tiny bit of integration. This is gonna get much better once we actually merge the arm with the rest of the body, but for right now I'm just going to indicate some of these like wrinkle area here, like this area where the arm is like pushing up against the skin, that overlap. Okay. And we'll do the same thing. So I'm going to turn that off. We'll duplicate this, mirror it over just to see how it's looking. Okay. I think that's pretty good. I'm gonna turn this dimming off. Just so I don't know exactly what the osteoderm layout is going to be on this guy just yet. I need to do a bit more research and see what would be. Excuse me. I'm getting kind of. It's kind of early in the morning for me. So I'm still kind of drowsy. But what I was saying is I don't know exactly what the layout for these osteoderms is going to be just yet. So I'm kind of laying in kind of a generic like crocodilian form there, like flow, just to get things started. But there's a lot of variety. I'm probably Purussaurus is more closely related to caimans. So I'll probably look some caimans up and see like how their osteoderms are laid out on their back, and then maybe from there make a decision about what could work. I think for crocodilians though, especially in the tail, it's fairly uniform, like the way things, the way things are organized. Because you have these two tracks that come down the midline, and these two tracks on the outside that merge into one single. And that's what I'm gonna try to do once we get to that point, but I can kind of block it in here so it's a little bit more refined. I don't want to dent the surface too badly. Okay. Something like that is a little bit more clean. think I'm gonna jump back onto the head for a moment. And we'll fill in this. This is actually, so the muscles that fill this area are actually coming up from in here, I think. They're coming in from, I guess this would be the origin, and they're inserting into the jaw down here somewhere. So they're up here and they're coming down here, I believe. But I'm not gonna follow that trackway. Like, I'm not gonna put the actual mesh in there, because majority of that muscle mass is not gonna be seen. And this would be, this needs to get filled up anyway. So I'm just gonna split that off. Merge it down to the rest of the jaw muscles. This is in the way. Are these done mesh? Okay. And we'll get back into some of the skull stuff. Just kind of evening out the surface, seeing what I have here. Fill out these muscles here. Kind of not sure where those guys are. What is this? That's a different muscle. This is that muscle. Okay, I see. So I want this. Despo. Hi. Insane. Thank you. This structure here on the top of the head needs a little bit more definition. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think this is where their ears are, maybe. I could be wrong. I have to double check. There's usually like a little slit in there near their, like the back of the head, that I think might be their ear, but I am not exactly sure about that. One thing I like to do sometimes, especially when I'm refining, like more in a refining stage, is I'll switch the alpha on this clay buildup into something that's slightly softer. So I'm trying to be more specific here. And I don't want like big chunky brush strokes necessarily in this area. And it could be also that I don't have enough resolution. So if I bump that up a little bit more, that might be better. I need to bring this out. What's still going to be interesting is figuring out what to do with this like big nostril. I mean, not the nostril, this big open area here. Because I'm not quite sure how that would have been filled in. Like if it would have been super visible. Might need to do a little bit more looking into that. But for right now, I'm just going to keep kind of this form feels okay. It looks kind of weird now because it's separated from the skull still, but I think once we merge it together, and this line, this harsh line on the sides gets blended out, I think it'll feel much better. Sorry, I'm kind of getting into like design mode. Trying to figure out a lot of this now. One thing that might be fun, just to add a little bit of life to stuff. Get that subdivided, and then what do I want to do? Toy plastic. Let me find an eye. And then we're going to mRGB. Get like a green. Like that. Maybe darker. I don't want to sculpt. Sometimes this pays off and sometimes it doesn't. I'm gonna just kind of see how I feel about it. Sometimes it's nice to get like a little bit of eye texture in, because it can help you can just help make the sculpt feel just a little bit more alive a little bit sooner. Sometimes it just kind of makes the sculpt look kind of derpy. It depends, because the thing that's rough, well, not rough, but kind of hard about doing this sort of thing is that it's not like actual, there's no refraction, so you're not actually getting the like dimensionality out of the eye. Because the eye is like, it's kind of like a dished out concave shape surrounded by a lens, right? So you get a nice like what am I trying to say? You get a nice depth to the eye. Whereas this is just a sphere with a texture placed on it. So there's no the perspective of the sphere and in relation to the camera affects how the eye looks. So it'll distort the eye around that surface, and it can look strange from different angles. But I don't know. Maybe it'll look cool. Might be able to. It might help just kind of visualize some stuff a little bit too. I'm not gonna take too long to do this because it might not be worth it. Let's see how that looks. It'll probably look good from that angle. Once I rotate the camera, it might look a little bit screwy. But from certain angles, it'll look cool. Might help. Just kind of get the feeling out of the animal in there just a little bit. Get that in, turn off that. So I'm using Sculptress on this to build out some details in here. Just because I'm not exactly sure where all these details are gonna fall, and I still need enough geometry to lay it all in. So Sculptress is a good solution for that, so I don't really have to worry about like updating the topology every few seconds. I can just kind of sculpt what I need to sculpt and then see how it looks. And we got a autosave. Okay, cool. Autosave always freaks me out because maybe this mesh is fairly light right now, but as we get into higher and higher resolutions, that autosave is going to take longer and longer, and sometimes the autosave will crash ZBrush, which really sucks. ZBrush, I mean, I love it, but I will say that it is kind of temperamental. It will crash. It has crashed on me many times. It will probably crash at some point in the stream. Hopefully not this stream, but eventually it'll probably do it. And yeah, it's just kind of like a fact of life when you're working with ZBrush, or I guess any 3D really. It's just so hard on, it requires so much computing power. And like my computer, like I built my computer specifically to do this type of work. So there might be some things that I can update now, because there's like new graphics cards and stuff that have come out recently. But for the most part, it's still a pretty, I mean, it's a pretty good computer, pretty powerful. But even still, like, ZBrush will crash. As far as I know, I don't know a person who uses ZBrush who hasn't had issues with that. Let's see what else we can do with this eye. I'm actually going to use the pinch. Where is it? Pinch. I don't need sculptures on. Probably doing a little bit too much of these little details here, but I kind of just want to get that feeling of just some sort of more reptilian, detail in there. Just temporarily. One thing that's really good that I've like when I'm looking at crocodile references and like trying to get the forms in there, it can be kind of hard because crocodiles, alligators and stuff like that, they have really complex kind of modeled surface patterns. They can be kind of dark, and they mess with the perception of the form. So I like looking at albino, like crocodiles and alligators, because they don't have their pattern, and I can see the surface of just their forms a lot better. So I have a few references like that I'm looking at right now. Oh wow. Guys, I just looked at the time and I realized that I'm 10 minutes over. I got sucked in to the flow of things. I do think I'll have to cut it off there. I think we made a decent amount of progress. Like we got both legs refined. Did some work on the body, getting the forms a little bit more dialed in, and then some more work on the head, which we're going to probably continue next week. Yeah, let me see if I have anything else that I want to talk. If you look at the links in the description, I just moved over to a new platform, social media platform called Blue Sky. It's supposed to be kind of like a Twitter sort of replacement, or yeah, it's just a little bit better environment for artists right now, I think. So I popped over there and I'm posting new stuff. So if you're interested in taking a look at that, feel free to stop by. But otherwise, yeah, keep an eye out for more updates from Echoes. And I will catch you guys next week and we'll do some more work on the Peru. Thank you all for coming to the stream. Bye. Bye, all.